Cat Nation, welcome back to the podcast. Hey, if you have not been paying attention, it's popping. It's getting heated in a good way. It's cooking in the kitchen. Yo, rookie mini camps are here. We're seeing New Orleans Saints in uniform. Granted, it's shorts, it's hats, but it doesn't matter. It's football. That's all that matters. It's back, baby. It counts. I don't care if you don't like it. Why don't you like it? Like, football is a 24/7, 365 sport. And I'm not taking May off. I'm not. We're here. We're going to talk about it. We're going to enjoy rookie minicamp. We're going to talk about all the news from it. We're going to talk with y'all, and we're going to talk about some things that I think kind of my theme, because I've been talking to y'all a lot in the comments section when we've been doing a lot of, well, I would say a lot. I would definitely say that I've tried my best to kick into the film studies more than I have in the past. Don't worry, you are getting more film studies this week because I've done one on Foster Moreau, which is the most recent one, like 4 days ago. We got the podcast tonight. We had 12,000 followers on the channel, which is so cool. And we also did one on Isaiah Foskey. We're going to do one on Brian Breesy. We're going to do on the new running back Miller. Just FYI, I'm probably not going to do one on James Washington because I'm really not super confident a signing that we made here in May is going to have much of an impact. Keep in mind that he hasn't really made an impact in the league since probably 2020. Curious what chat thinks about that, but I'm wanting to get a shot. I have no problem against the signing. I'm just not going to overhype it. But let's get in. Let's get some hoot-ass to those who are here into the chat early. Love all of our live listeners. Appreciate y'all for always coming through. And, of course, appreciate people who listen on iTunes, Spotify, Google, iHeart Radio, etc. Hoot-ass to TJ, one of our moderators. Lester, kill some. Evan McElroy, good to see you. Abraham, who is very upset right now because the Saints signed James Washington, but not Des Bryant. Creole King, Who Dat Larry, TJ Twigga, James Griffin, DeAndre Bailey, Rainey, NTR, good to see you. You're cautiously optimistic. Look, I will tell you that I did a little bit of, I guess you'd call it research. I went out and checked out some of the social media sites of other of our fan bases here in the NFC South. And when I mean other social media sites, like I went to the fans. I didn't go to the Panthers Twitter page. I'll be honest. I know our natural reaction is to laugh, but every other fan base from our division saw their team winning 10 or more games. Like, everybody looked at their schedule and went, oh, cakewalk, we on it. So I will say it's important for me, and a theme that I really want to hit on as we get into this offseason, because we get closer to training camp, is I want to set realistic expectations. And I did this with if y'all remember, the Foster Moreau video. Like, I really focused on the Foster Moreau video of, hey, let's not get crazy and say that he's going to be the most amazing stud in the world. Let's talk about what he did well, what he can do, what he can possibly improve on, and how he can contribute to the team. And that's how I'm looking at things right now when I'm going through what's happening with the Saints and, who's looking good so far in minicamp. How much do I actually care about minicamp? Do I care at all about minicamp? Or are we going to focus more on, like, Cameron Jordan, 33 years old, working on an extension with the Saints, which I think is mostly a cap-saving move, and also guaranteeing that he's with this team for the rest of his career, which I will say real quick, this is kind of like a segue to, like, we're rabbit trailing a little bit, but isn't it amazing? Because it's so rare, y'all. So rare. Isn't it amazing that Cameron Jordan is going to be a player who spends his entire career in New Orleans? And the reason it's amazing is we're not talking about a guy who played in the league like 4 years. Honest to God, at this point, I don't see Cameron Jordan playing anywhere else. He's already played for the team, 12 years? He's going to probably end up finishing his career in the next 3 or 4 here. He's going to have a 15-year career with one team. In modern sports, in post-free agency professional sports, that is ridiculously rare. And, like, that just is, for me, one of the coolest things that I can really talk about. To me, that's absolutely fantastic. I think Cameron Jordan extending is one of the most exciting talk points for me that I can really have in the summer. And it's kind of like what Lester also says in chat. Then you also have the possibility that he stays with the team in a coaching form, which, just to remind y'all, The Saints have had former Saints players coaching more than just Zach Strief. Because we talk about Zach Strief, and yeah, look, shout out to Zach Strief. I'm not taking anything from him, but you got Jari Evans now. You had Zach Strief, but on the defensive side, you've had multiple former players there. You got Sterling Moore right now that I think people forget is Sterling Moore is actually one of your defensive assistants. So you have a very real chance that not only do you have Cameron Jordan finishing his career in New Orleans, but he's part of this franchise for a long time. And to me, that is just one of the coolest freaking things. I know that I've talked about my favorite Saints being, my experience with Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. And I'll tell you one jersey I regret that I don't have yet. I've got signed Alvin Kamara. I've got signed Mark Ingram, and they're framed. Willie Roaf. I don't have Cameron Jordan. And I, honest to God, really need to rectify that problem for me personally, because I need to give him the respect that he deserves as a Saint. And truthfully, and I say this with all honesty, and I know what I'm about to say is mostly because of injury, but did you know the 12 years that he has put out with New Orleans is superior in every statistical category except for Defensive Player of the Year awards than what J.J. Watt did in 12 years with Houston? Now, keep in mind that J.J. Watt went through some serious injuries, and I will definitely say that the peak of J.J. Watt was superior to what Cameron Jordan has displayed in a singular season. But there's something to be said about being an Ironman, longevity. There's something to be said that the fact that Cameron Jordan, while technically having missed games, has played 16 games for 12 straight years. Now, I know that we have a new league, so technically there's been a 17th game, and he could have played that. But we're talking about an Iron Man who for a dozen years has been there every day. I still need to see how far this stretch can go, but I'm pretty sure he's going to set an NFL record for the most seasons in a row with 7.5 sacks or more. Absolutely insane. He's made 8 Pro Bowls. He's been a first-team All-Pro once, but he's been a second All-Pro twice. And the year that, I think 2017, that many would consider one of his best years, he was 4th in Defensive Player of the Year voting. That's just it. I know I've spent 5 minutes kind of just really puffing up Cameron Jordan, but you talk about the quintessential New Orleans Saint. He is the quintessential New Orleans Saint, of our era. And I think that there are New Orleans Saints of the past that also deserve to be in that conversation. But you talk about in the 2000s, who was a homebred in terms of we got him, he stayed with us, he was with us the entire time, New Orleans Saint. Cameron Jordan's a guy. And I don't say that to throw shade at Drew Brees or anything, just generally speaking. You talk about great players, man. Just sit back, think about it. That's who it is this year. And if you are an older Saints fan in the chat, feel free to throw out other names that you think deserve that same type of love and same type of recognition. Guys who have been with the team, were with the team, and that was their career, was this team. And I guess we can make some exceptions for, maybe guys who did 1 year, the end of their career, 1 year with another team or something like that. But I mean, truthfully, I look at a Cameron Jordan the same eyes that I would look at, a Ricky Jackson. And the reason I brought up that maybe spent a year or two with another team, Ricky Jackson, was that Ricky Jackson played 13 years in New Orleans and then had just 2 final ones in San Francisco, which, by the way, at 37 years old, Ricky Jackson put up 9.5 sacks for San Francisco before finally retiring. So, good night. That's wild. But yeah, that's it's very rare to find guys who spend their entire, and that brings in Jari Evans because he spent 1 year, away, 1 or 2 with other teams at the end of his career. But in terms of the quintessential New Orleans Saint, yeah, Cam needs a lot of love. Anyway, let's jump off the let me grab these names in chat. Let's jump off the I love Cameron Jordan trade, but Ricky Jackson, Jari Evans, Marcus Colston, Zach Strief, Willie Roaf, Deuce McAllister. And see, Lester, Willie Roaf is one that, as much as I love Willie Roaf, I actually wouldn't include Willie because he had 5 amazing years in Kansas City. So he was really split. Kansas City fans love Willie Roaf as much as New Orleans Saints fans do. And I don't want to take that away from Kansas City. I'm not saying that Willie Roaf wasn't the best left tackle this team's ever had. He is. But he also had some elite years in Kansas City. So, yeah. But Jerry, good to see you. Lame, good to see you. Gerald, also good to see you. A real quick news want to cover. James Washington was signed to the team. We've already had one of our regulars and TJ say that he's not even going to make it, so we shouldn't even talk about it, but I'm going to talk about it anyway because it's my show. And TJ doesn't get to determine what our show is. He didn't say that anyway, but he did say he's not going to make the team. But James Washington, for those that don't remember, you were probably going to remember him from the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's a former second-round draft pick. He's only 27, so in terms of skill position, relatively young. Last year, just due to situations, wasn't able to have any, I'm just going to cut it what it is, any form of impact last year. Like literally none at all. And keep in mind that he had a pedal foot fracture. So he got it in camp. He didn't come back to Dallas until like week 15, week 16. By then, the team obviously had got other plans. They were doing other things. And I think he ended up not even getting a catch last year for Dallas. But in his 4 years with Pittsburgh, he got 1,600 yards, 11 TDs. His best season was the second year in Pitt. Obviously catching balls from Ben Roethlisberger. 735 yards, 3 TDs was his best season. He's a guy coming in to, look at those slot reps and probably try to make an impact wherever he can. I mean, at this point in his career, he'd probably be trying to make the roster, even if that includes our friend Ross Jackson's favorite thing, special teams. Anybody want to give a shout out to special teams? And for the record, he does take special team snaps. So, yeah, hey, look, special teams. It's a way to make a roster in the NFL. And all of chat went, oh, do we have to keep talking about special teams? Yes, we do. Now, he's not an elite special teamer by any stretch of the imagination, but he is somebody that can take those reps, and it's not rare to see receivers that can be returners. So look for that, see if he makes the roster somehow. Those are the main paths. If I had to postulate how many you would see the New Orleans Saints carry in terms of wide receivers, 5 is the magic number of what I see. The most you would ever really see get carried in a season for wide receivers is 6. That's the absolute most you would see get kept on a roster in that position group. So you've got Chris Olave, Michael Thomas, Rashid Shaheed, who I think are the 3 immediate locks. No matter what, those 3 are on the roster. I don't really think it's much of a debate. And the next tier, I would say Bryan Edwards, A.T. Perry, maybe Keith Kirkwood, and Traquan Smith be the next 4. And then you've got James Washington, Kirk Merritt, Kawan Baker, last year's draft pick, Malik Flowers, and then Shaquan Davis, who was one of their UDFA signings. So I think you're sitting at right now that there's like 12 receivers who are, camp bodies. I think there's 3 guaranteed. I think there's 2 spots left after that for guys to fight after. At this point, guys like Traquan, Keith Kirkwood, Kirk Merritt, I don't think that they should have any type of guarantee at a roster spot. And technically, A.T. Perry shouldn't either. But I will say A.T. Perry has looked good in rookie minicamp, which obviously, grand scheme, you can't really say that means necessarily anything, I guess. Has looked good in minicamp. And I honestly think that if the Saints didn't put him on the roster, somebody would snatch him up. So I would almost want to guarantee that you put A.T. Perry on the roster. Bryan Edwards, I think, may have a leg up over some other receivers because of the rapport that we believe he's going to have already with Derek Carr. Maybe that helps him out. So in theory, if I had to pick 5 wide receivers, like I had to pick 5 right now, Chris Olave, Michael Thomas, Rashid Shaheed, A.T. Perry, and Bryan Edwards would be the 5 that I picked to go into the roster right now. But that's just kind of like making an educated guess. It could definitely flow multiple directions, and it's possible they end up keeping 6. It's very rare, but it has happened in the past where you keep 6 wide receivers. But Traquan Smith, he has been a solid guy. Obviously, he's not been amazing. But Traquan is coming into his 6th year? This is his 6th year. And his career is 1,700 receiving yards, 18 touchdowns, which honestly, not bad. A 67% catch rate in 5 years for a 3rd-round pick. He never really elevated and became the guy. He is a solid contributor, good blocker, can make a catch. Like every year, there are at least, I'll say this, every year there are at least 2 Traquan Smith catches that make you go, woo, look at him. Every year. There are. I'm sorry. There just are. One of them would be that end zone TD he caught from Jameis Winston, just to give you a recent one. But that doesn't mean going into his 6th year, you keep him. I mean, if there's another young buck that you think has more long-term potential, you keep it moving. And I think you give him a shot. Like you let Traquan play. He's 27. But if you're keeping 5 wide receivers, I'm definitely eyeballing guys like A.T. Perry more because I want the young buck to have a shot. And truly, I would rather not lose him. I think we talk about guys who are, reaches, and then we talk about guys who are, great value. I think A.T. Perry in the 6th round was a tremendous value. And I doubt training camp ends and you try to sneak A.T. Perry on the practice squad, he makes it. I would really doubt it. So we'll just keep it moving and see what happens. Hunter says it's time for Traquan to go. Send him to Peyton for a 5th. I mean, if Peyton would pay for it, sure. We know he loves those blocking tight ends or blocking wide receivers too. But yeah, I mean, I don't see that happening. Sousa's history would say that there's a legit chance a UDFA receiver will make this roster. History says that, but that was also a history of another coach. I think you've seen that happen in years where, honestly, this team wasn't very good. And you look at last year's roster, though, look at last year's wide receiver roster, because I do think that the general way that we see Pete Carmichael do things is not necessarily the way that we see the New Orleans Saints do things with how Sean Payton did them. But last year, here's what you went into. And again, I'm not trying to do this in like a take shot ways, but last year you did enter in with 6 wide receivers. In terms of October 1st, your roster last year included 6 wide receivers: Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, Jarvis Landry, Marquez Callaway, Deontay Hardy, Traquan Smith. Technically, there are undrafteds on that list, but there was nobody on that list last year who was a new undrafted player. Everybody who made the roster last year, even if they were, a UDFA, they were an established player in this system. They didn't wiggle room anybody new onto it. Now, that doesn't mean that guys didn't end up playing, because obviously New Orleans is just famous for injuries. So you end up having Kevin White come back onto the roster, and obviously Rashid Shaheed popped up, and I know that's when people are going to be like, oh, Rashid Shaheed. But like if you talk about October's roster, Rashid wasn't on it. So it took injuries and things to make that happen. And I think there's a little bit more out of Pete Carmichael, a reliance on knowing what you've got instead of guessing what you've got. And again, this is just me making an observation based off 1 year, which we know is not a big enough form or data pool to really make a true educated guess. But I do think it is something that we should mention, because when I look at this year and I say, hey, who could the Saints potentially bring in now? I do think there's opportunity. I mean, if you're Malik Flowers, if you're Shaquan Davis, there's room. But then you also look who's available. Okay, let's talk about Kirk Merritt. To me, if Kirk Merritt was going to make it, he would have already made it. Kirk Merritt is 26. This is like his 5th year. This is his 2nd or 3rd team, multiple years now with NOLA. If Kirk Merritt was going to make it in the NFL, he probably would have. I don't see him having a Caden Ellis pop-off moment, but hey, anything can happen. And then you've got Malik Flowers and Shaquan Davis. But I think the top end of the receiver group is so set in stone. And then you brought in Brian Edwards because of Derek Carr, just like you have, Aaron Rodgers still recruiting guys like Randall Cobb. Thankfully, Brian Edwards isn't 400 years old. But it's hard to see Brian Edwards not making the roster unless he just doesn't look good, because you definitely brought him in because your quarterback feels a rapport with him and you want him to have weapons that he feels comfortable with, which then would make it like, okay, we've got 4 definite wide receiver spots, and then A.T. Perry, almost 5 definite. So it goes back to, well, unless you're keeping 6, who's that 6th guy? And then it would be, do you keep the veteran in Traquan? What do you do with Keith Kirkwood, if anything? Or do you run it with those under guys? So I would say that yes. To your point, Stu, it's definitely potential that this team brings in and keeps a UDFA wide receiver. But I'm curious where that ends up being. I think another thing to keep in mind is when they were making last year's roster, there were a lot of guys that they would have liked to have had on the defensive side of the ball that they didn't end up keeping because of injury. And that's like Smoke Monday had an amazing camp last year, but wasn't part of the October roster because of injury. And Malcolm Roach wasn't a part of the October 1st roster because of injury. DeMarco Jackson never played a snap for New Orleans because of injury, but was another guy that they were really pumped on and thought that he could be a guy. Who was somebody else? Alontae Taylor didn't start on the roster because of injury. So I look at a guy like DA and I go, there were also 4 or 5 names that he probably would have wanted to sneak in, but couldn't. So, yeah, we'll see. Sheldon Rankins was an underwhelming athlete. What? Lame? No. Sheldon Rankins was an amazing athlete. Lame. Hey, we are not going to tear down players. We are not going to tear down players to boost others. Sheldon Rankins was an elite athlete. What are you talking about? That was one of his things coming out. That dude was a dope athlete. Sheldon Rankins' RAS score was stupid high. Sir, calm down. Calm down. The one thing that hurt Sheldon Rankins' RAS was his height and weight. But the dude put up elite times in the 40, the 20, the 10, the bench, the vertical, the broad, the shuttle, 3-cone. Everything he had on his chart was green. He was an elite athlete. He just had an injury problem. Now, I'm not saying that Breesy can't be successful, but let's calm down on like throwing shade at other defensive linemen and stuff to boost up our own. I think that our guys, especially the new guys, let them stand on their own, right? Like, I think that there's a lot of reasons to like Breezy, but let him do that. Let's not tear down somebody else for the sake of boosting one up. I think that, there are cases where maybe there's some truth to that, but like Sheldon Rankins was an athlete. Like, that was a highlight of Rankins when he got drafted and was coming to the team. That was a good thing about him, but then it got robbed from him because of injury and stuff like that. So just to give you an example, I pulled it up just to make sure I wasn't blowing smoke up y'all's booties. But example, here you go. Broad jump for Sheldon Rankins was 9'10". That is a 9.8 RAS score. By comparison, Aaron Donald's was 9'8". Give you another one. His vertical jump was 34.5. Aaron Donald's was 32. His 10-yard split was a 1.7, which was a 7.7, which is still an elite RAS. Not amazing, but still elite compared to a 1.63. He had a 1.73, so a tenth of a second slower than Aaron Donald, who is a generational 3-tech. So he's a tenth of a second slower than the generational guy. He had a better, or right around the same 3-cone score, and his shuttle was elite. I mean, the only thing to really knock Sheldon Rankins was that he was under 300 pounds. So again, I'm not saying that, Sheldon Rankins is secretly like this amazing, wonderful athlete, but he was a damn good athlete. He's a damn good athlete who had fantastic technique. So you just need Sheldon Rankins to be healthy. There was one season where Sheldon Rankins was arguably a top 5 player at his position, and then injury hit him the next year, and he never was that guy again. He just said Smoke Monday, amazing camp. How long was he dressed? 2 weeks. So Smoke Monday did not make it through camp, but if you remember, not only was media hyping up Smoke Monday, multiple Saints veterans, including Honey Badger, were talking about how good Smoke Monday looked out on the field. Now, again, how much do we buy into camp conversations? We try not to do a ton of that because it is camp and it is hype. But at the same time, it does matter. And I think that Smoke was making an impression. And whether the impression led to him getting like on-field snaps and making plays, I'm not saying that Smoke Monday was going to be a player, but I do think that he was making an impression to be one of those guys that makes the roster. And that was kind of my point. If we're talking about how many receivers the team keeps, I think it's really dependent on how many people DA keeps in the DB room. We'll just have to wait and see. Lane says, didn't translate to the field? It definitely did translate to the field. That's like, lame. Again, I'll encourage you. I think I've got a couple of Sheldon Rankins film studies on my channel. Go check them out. I mean, you can definitely see his athleticism really pops on his tape. Sheldon Rankins had it until he didn't after the injury. But if you look at his 2018 and 2017 film studies, his spin move, especially 2018, that spin move could have been the best spin move of any 3-tech in the NFL. His first step was elite. I mean, he was really he was right there. And then sadly, it got yanked from him. But yeah, that's Now, I will agree, like, if you're talking the Sheldon, like, if you watch Sheldon Rankins of the past couple years, he doesn't translate that. But if you go back to before the major injury that he dealt with, you can see the Sheldon Rankins athleticism really popping off. And the one area that you could say he didn't ever show was elite play strength. And David Onyemata flashed elite play strength. I would say that's probably a point that I could get behind and agree on. But again, that man had some serious problems. It was the Achilles tear, and you just don't see a lot of guys recovering from that. But he had a grade 3 Achilles tear, and then he's had a high ankle sprain. I think he had the high ankle sprain like right before that. Did he have a high ankle sprain, and then he got the Achilles tear like a month later, and then he went the Jets. So, yeah. Good to see you, Eric. Good to see you. Good to see you. I wonder who else will be brought in for linebacker and O-line depth. So just to give y'all an FYI of who's here right now, because I know that y'all do like to know who's currently on the roster. Here are all the offensive linemen on the roster. They actually have a very healthy amount right now. So who's here? Words, hard, ouch, stop it. Use words, Rev, use words. Anyway, here's who's on the offensive line right now. You got Trevor Penning, Andres Pete, Eric McCoy, Cesar Ruiz, Ryan Ramczyk, James Hurst, Calvin Throckmorton, Alex Fieldstrom, Nick Saldiveri, who I really think ends up starting this year because of injury, but no matter what, ends up starting. Storm Norton, Lewis Kidd, Yasir Durant, Coda Martin, Landon Young, and Mark Evans II. They have 15 offensive linemen currently in camp. Now, that can rotate in a couple different directions. We have 15 offensive linemen currently on the roster in camp. They've got a hardy number. They're definitely looking for not only who could be depth along the offensive line, but also guys who can contribute to potentially be future starters along the offensive line. And the one that I'm telling y'all to pay attention to, especially when we're talking about rookie mini camps, Nick Saldiveri. The tricky thing for me is the spots that you see his tape translate to is the right side. That's where he played, right tackle and right guard. The spot I think he has the best chance of becoming the future starter at the soonest is left guard. Do we see that actually happen? We'll see. We'll see. But I am harping on this one. This is going to be one of the names you hear me talking about a lot. Keep an eye out for this guy. I think that they really, and keep in mind that this doesn't happen very often. New Orleans Saints, he signed his contract, his rookie contract 3 days ago or yesterday, 2 days ago. It was $63,000 more than his typical rookie contract for his draft rank would have called for. They literally overpaid for him to make sure that he was signed and in camp. They didn't want him just dilly-dallying around. They wanted him here now. Yo, I'm telling you, this is a cat to watch. You talk about the things that happen behind the scenes type of a deal. Watch this one. They really, like this guy. And they don't necessarily think that he's going to be an immediate starter, but they really, like him as a guy who's going to play at some point. So keep that in mind. We'll see. Here's how I personally see it happen. If they use him on that left side, I think that Andres Pete ends up being the starter. I think Andres Pete gets injured at some point. Nick slides in, and Andres never starts again for the New Orleans Saints. That's what I personally see happening. Now, Andres Pete has gotten a lot of flack over his career. One thing that I will never deny about him, and I won't even try to defend, is he has not been able to play healthy basically ever. That's just a fact. But what I believe happens is Andres Pete is your starting left guard this year. At some point, he gets injured, and then Saldiveri slides in, and you never see Pete start again. T just says he thinks he takes Pete's job in camp. I'm here for the competition. I really am. I am not going to make that call, but at the same time, we'll see. I think Saldiveri doesn't have a good enough film profile to where I would jump that far that quickly, and I don't think you have to. I think that you can allow him to develop as much as you need him to. But if he truly earns it, yeah, let him have it. If he truly earns it, let him have it. But it's kind of like last year. Trevor Penning never earned that left tackle spot from James Hurst, regardless of the injury, right? Hurst was the left tackle because Penning never made it. So you allow that camp battle to happen, but you don't feel the need to make it happen, I guess is the best way to say it. And if Honors Pete truly gets outplayed throughout camp by Nick Saldivari, cool. Let Saldivari be the starter. But if Pete's healthy, he's been a very good player when healthy, and you just let it ride out until he's injured. And then I believe Saldivari becomes your future starter, slides right in, just like how Stitchcomb was replaced by Zach Strief, just like you saw, Zach Strief get replaced by Ryan Ramczyk. Same kind of idea. Good evening, Mike. Good to see you, man. Glad that you're here. Onyemata's elite play string seemed to decline after the PEDs. I'm not going to speak on that tragic because honestly, that's all really speculation, and I'm not trying to besmirch the name of a man who did block me on Twitter and now plays for the Atlanta Falcons. So honestly, I don't really give a flying floopity floop what he's doing or smoking or eating. But you know what? I'm still not going to disrespect the man. I truly don't know. But I will say that he never lived up to the potential that we wanted him to live up to. So, Kilsom says, does Penning start this season? I'll tell you this. I would be shocked if Penning is not starting in camp at left tackle. Now, if he doesn't make it, that's one thing. Like, if he just doesn't look good and somebody else starts, fine. But keep in mind that you don't see him yet. The only thing going on right now is rookie mini camps. You don't have regular mini camps going on or anything. So, you're only really seeing the rookies go through all the stuff, and that's okay. I mean, it's not a problem. It's just normal. It's how things go. But talking about, like, who's looked good in rookie mini camps, one of the people who's looked good has been our new quarterback. That's cool. That's fun. Let's talk about it. But just generally speaking, you're going to probably want to keep that one in as, okay, pay attention. Who are they giving all the number one reps to? I expect to see Penning and Hurst split first-team reps. And I expect they want Penning to be the starter week one if he can do the job. If they can do the job. We'll just have to wait and see. So, it'd be encouraging if these rookies and sophomores show out with starters rookie of the year potential. Sure. I mean, NTR, great. It's we talked about this last episode. One thing that you always have to keep in mind is that there's going to be somebody on this team who takes a step backwards. And that's just a statistical fact. Now, I don't like to speak that into existence, because I'm not one to be negative. I'm not here to be negative about the team. I'm not here to be negative about a player, because if you're a New Orleans Saint, obviously all of us hopefully are loyal to our Saints. And I really mean that. I hope we're all loyal to our Saints. I hope we all love our Saints. But the truth is, and this is just a fact, New Orleans Saints are going to have somebody take a step back. Last year, that was Paulson and Debo. Now, I do think that Paulson and Debo had injuries that made that such a visible issue that regular fans even noticed. Like, this dude's just playing poorly. I think injury played a big role in that. But it happens. And TJ says Alontae Taylor, and technically I would agree. Alontae Taylor, a skill position player, especially a corner, is a player I worry about the most in taking a second year back. It really is. Skill positions are ones where you give a team an offseason of tape to learn how they can really pick on you and just how difficult the position can be from an athletic standpoint and having to refine your technique. It is possible that Alontae Taylor, now I'm not going to pick Alontae Taylor to do it because I really love what I saw from Taylor, and Taylor last year was better than Adebo was as a rookie, and Adebo had a really good rookie year, so let's wait and see. Hell, it could be Marshawn Lattimore. Lattimore could finally fall off the face of the earth. You don't know. But that is going to happen. It is going to happen. Somebody's going to take a step back this year, and it could even be Chris Olave. But keep it truthful. As much as I love what this offense has put together, I think the offense going into 2023 is far superior to what you saw in 2022 as a roster on paper. You can still see one of those guys take a step back, even though that there's a better overall unit here available for them. Just have to wait and see how that plays out. Xavier says, what's the biggest remaining hole to fill? I think we could bring in veteran linebackers like Adam Bighill, and seriously, maybe even a Rashad Evers or Quan Alexander. Xavier, look, I love you, buddy, but you're bringing up names from the past, from a long past ago. No offense to Adam Bighill. He couldn't make it the first time. No offense to Quan Alexander. At this point in his career, I don't really think he's providing anything. Am I against them bringing in guys? I'm not. But I would rather, and let's actually use this as a moment to talk about linebackers who are on the roster at the moment, because there are 10. Believe it or not, there's 10 linebackers here in camp right now. I'd rather see what Andrew Dow can do. I'd rather see DeMarco Jackson if he's healthy. I'd rather even see Nefi Sewell. They did bring in Anthony Orji, see what he can maybe do, than bringing in a veteran who, hey, shout out to Quan. Quan had a healthier year last year, so shout out to him. He ended up playing, all 17 games for New York, so shout out to the man. But he's going to be 29 with a career of injuries. I would much rather, put it this way, every year I talk about, hey, I'm cool with signing, and I said this about Quan last year. I'm okay with signing Quan Alexander, but here's the thing. I already know what Quan Alexander can do. I would rather go throughout training camp with a lot of these other guys to see and give them an opportunity than to bring in a veteran like Quan Alexander right now. I know what Quan Alexander can do if he's healthy. I've seen it. He's played this system a couple years ago, in fact. I know what he can do if he's a backup linebacker with his team. Let me see what these other guys can do. What can Ryan Colony do? Here, let's rattle off all the linebackers currently on your training camp roster. Pete Warner, Demario Davis, Zach Baum. I know Zach Baum's mostly a special teamer at this point, but he's on the list. Even Dennis Allen was like, yeah, this guy's not really taking a step up. But anyway, Andrew Dow, DeMarco Jackson, Ty Summers. Y'all probably don't remember him, but he used to play for, I think, Jacksonville. Ryan Connolly, Nefi Sewell, Anthony Orji, and Nick Anderson. So Nick Anderson, by the way, talk about UDFAs who can make this team. Local guy coming out of Tulane. Actually, I've gotten to talk to this guy before. Really freaking cool dude. Undersized, makes you want to root for him. He's like 5'9.5", 230. Like, come on, baby. Be the next Sam Mills. I'm here for it. But lifelong New Orleans fan. That makes you want to root for him. Playing for Tulane. Like, oh, I know that doesn't make a guy good, but damn it, how can you not root for him? I would much rather have Nick Anderson on this roster having a shot to show something than bringing in Quan Alexander right now. Now, would I say that linebacker is still a hole? Honestly, no. No, it's not. Linebacker is not a hole right now because the New Orleans Saints only start 2 linebackers. Now, your linebacker depth is a hole. 100% agree with you. Linebacker depth is definitely a hole right now. But this is actually why I'm excited about guys like Nick Anderson and, and Andrew Dow and DeMarco Jackson. Because what has the New Orleans Saints shown that they'll do? They will let linebackers be here, contribute on special teams, and grow, and turn into Caden Ellis. They'll give them the time to develop. And that is your depth. And I'm cool with that as long as it continues to work. So I'm okay with that. Yeah, let that man cook. And if it doesn't work out, then let's go and talk to what Xavier said. Let's bring in that veteran. And then I'm actually cool with it. But I'm not bringing in that type of veteran until the end of camp when it's clear we need it. It ain't working out. And yeah, TJ, surprise, surprise. Quan Alexander played all 17 games for the New York Jets last year. Now, he only started, I think, officially on paper 12. He was part of a rotation for the Jets, but he was there every game, suited up, ready to go, knuck if you buck. You gotta love that, right? Gotta love that. So shout out to him. I think he, honestly, I'd look him up, but I'm pretty sure you could still call him the full-time starter. Remember, the way that they track who's the starter is, are you on the field the first snap of the game, offense or defense? That's literally how they determine if you're the starter or not in a game. So if you actually go look at Michael Thomas is registered as not the starter in multiple games when Drew Brees was here, which is stupid. We know that he was the full-time starter, but it's whoever's on the snap the first play of each side. So honestly, God, I think Quan Alexander was probably the full-time starter anyway. I'd have to pull up his snap counts, but I'm sure he was playing 60, 70% of the snaps, and he was the starter. So, yeah, 17 games. Awesome for Quan. Obviously, that's something that he struggled to do with his entire career. So, shout out to him. But if I'm the Saints, I'll bring him in if it ain't working. So, yeah. Lame says Alontae Taylor has too much dog and athleticism to fail. We'll see. Maybe. But hell, Marshawn Lattimore had a year back. I never know. It's one of those things you can't really. It's tough to speculate on that. But you could be right. You honestly could be right. You really, really could. And I thought he had a great season. But we'll wait and see. I've also been burned on corners having great seasons. I really have. One guy I'm hoping more than anything doesn't step back is Pete Warner. He's showing up. I agree, Mike. I think Pete Warner is the exact reason that Caden Ellis isn't here. you know, DA is not going to change his system because his system works. And I know that there were people who were like, well, you should have signed Caden Ellis. He looked so great. And he did. But New Orleans is not using three linebackers 60, 80, 100% of the time. So Pete Werner showed that when he was on the field, he was a next level player. And as much as I like Caden Ellis, he did not have Pete Werner level impact. But Caden Ellis was good, but he wasn't Pete Werner good. And there's a reason Werner slid right back in as a starter when he was healthy. So I just need the guy to be healthy. If he ends up being one of the next guys who only averages, 12, 13 games a season, then he's never going to reach the potential that we see in him. But he is a very, very good player. So as long as he can stay healthy, there you go. There you go. I'm here for it. I love the name brought up. I really do. Warner was on pace for second team All-Pro. He was definitely playing at a ridiculously high level. I mean, there was even points where we were talking about, man, this dude's outshining DeMario Davis right next to him, and we know DeMario's All-Pro level. But you got to be on the field, remember? I mean, it's the same things that we talk about with, Anders Pete. Anders Pete has got first 3 years, cool. Y'all can dump on him all you really want to. I get it. But his past 5 years when healthy, damn good tape. Hand usage is much better. He no longer had the lunging problem he used to have. He really kind of corrected that for the most part. Anchor, ridiculously strong. He just can't stay on the field. And you've seen him start to regress, especially because of injury. His past 2 years were definitely not as good as the 3 years before that, which were the 3 years he made a Pro Bowl, and injuries are that reason. And that's the fear for Pete Werner. Pete Werner is ascending, and he's ascending faster than an Anders Pete did. But if he can't play healthy, you're going to be worried about him. So just keep an eye out for it. I know it's a kind of a generic thing that everybody can worry about. So like Alro says, Pete can't stay on his feet. Hell, that hasn't been a problem with Pete in years. So that's you just need Pete Werner to be healthy. And if he is, legit. What do you feel about Gardner Johnson talking about Michael Thomas? CJ did not trash talk like he usually does. Look, maybe I'm overreading things. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, literally just a couple of months ago, while still a member of the Philadelphia Eagles, went on freaking TV and trash talk his defensive coordinator who helped them go to a Super Bowl. Yet when he was asked about Michael Thomas, all he had to say was, oh, he already know what it is. Chauncey being semi-quiet, not running his mouth, I think that kind of says a lot. One, I think he knows that Michael Thomas has got a dog in him that will bite back. And I think that he knows that Michael Thomas's dog will bite not by slapping him in the ear hole, but actually murdering him on the field. Like Michael Thomas gets his vengeance by body bagging you. And he's done, like, if you look, Michael Thomas will trash talk you on Twitter, but he will not throw a punch against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He will just beat you. He will not throw a punch against Marcus Peters. He will just embarrass you. He will not throw a punch against AJ Terrell. He will just use you as a coming out party. I think Chauncey understands there's just some people you don't run your mouth at. And whether or not Michael Thomas is Michael Thomas like he used to be, one thing I feel like I can say very strongly is we talked about Sean Payton having special games. Like every time Sean Payton will play Greg Williams again, he would just make sure to embarrass him and his future family. Like 100 years from now, we're going to be like, damn, your grandpappy was Greg Williams? That's embarrassing. Michael Thomas is that kind of a dude. And if there is like one little extra level, he's going to find it if you trash talking. Michael Thomas might have 15 pedestrian games in a season. The one game he's going to pop off is because you talk too much shit. That's the game. Mike's the type of player you don't give bulletin board material to. So I think it says a lot that Chauncey didn't. I'm not calling Chauncey a punk. I just think that Chauncey knows that there's sometimes it's okay, and some people you can run your mouth on, and some people you can't. So, Anti-Godfather says Saints 2023 Hard Knocks should be fun. Anti-Godfather, you be quiet. Be quiet. No. 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 Negative. That is a negative ghostwriter. That is a negative ghostwriter. If you haven't already, join the Discord. Come on in. Super Bowl winners don't go to Hard Knocks. Facts. Exactly. Bam. Got him. Dropping the hard facts. When pinning season ended because Pete stepped on his foot, I was like, of course it was Pete. I mean, I don't honestly blame Honest Pete for that. That's that big-footed tugboat, Trevor Penning. But I'll be real. Trevor Penning wasn't ready to start anyway. Trevor Penning didn't look like a damn starter in training camp. I don't think that he would have been a starter in the season, and there would have been a lot of growing pains. If y'all had watched Trevor Penning be the full-time starter in 2022, y'all would have been upset. I'm hoping that's not the case now, but y'all would have been upset. Just saying. Just saying. Trevor Penning did not look ready to start in the NFL in training camp. He did not. Now, I'm excited for Penning because he's got those raw intangibles that make you go, ooh, this can work. But it didn't look like it was going to work last year, and I'm pretty sure Hurst was going to be the starter no matter what. We'll see, though. I think a year of working out, a year of training, and a year of working on your technique can do wonders. So now I'm really excited to see Penning. We'll see. I'm really excited to see him, but we will see. We will see. What other questions y'all got in? Do y'all have anything about camp? We haven't really talked about who, if y'all follow some of our other media members, Nick Underhill, Ross Jackson, and even I think Jeff Nowak talked about him. But your new quarterback having a little bit of a couple of ooh-ah moments. Jake Hayner. Hey, when you got everybody talking, that's good. Now, I've already said this. I don't get too excited. I really don't. And I'm not trying to be a hater. I'm just being honest. I don't get too excited about quarterbacks looking good in T-shirts and hats. You want to know why? Because you're a damn quarterback who's played the position for years. Of course you look good. Like, hold on. Let me cut the lights. It's the Super Bowl in New Orleans all over again. Let me cut the lights. Of course you look good in shorts and a helmet. You're a damn quarterback who got drafted to the NFL. Shocker, you look semi-decent. Let's turn the lights back on in the Superdome. So that doesn't impress me much. I am still excited having gone back and watched a little bit of his tape. I'm like, all right, I can see it. Let's see what happens. But I'm definitely not going to be like rookie minicamp. Oh, my God, did you see Jake in his shorts throwing a football? But, hey, good release. You do like his mechanics. Hopefully it translates as we get to the future. But he definitely is a name that's popped up a lot in our conversations here. One thing I do want to also give a shout out real quick. If you're watching, appreciate you so much. If you want to help out the channel, check out our merch store. We got 2 t-shirts and a mug that you can pick up. The way you have something to rep the New Orleans Saints and also support us. We got the Pull the Trigger mug. We got the Pull the Trigger t-shirt. This year, we're going to have a new t-shirt out with a new Saints play. Probably going to focus on 4 verts. This one's the Yankee concept. So just go imagine that's Derek Carr to Chris Olave with Michael Thomas cutting underneath. That's a real play. It's from their playbook. Check it out. We also got the iHeart Confessional t-shirt. If you want to support the channel, check that out. Greatly appreciate it. Every little bit does help. Thank you as you're watching the show. We don't have sponsors, but we do have a community. So appreciate y'all for every time y'all donate to the channel and every time y'all pick up some merch. It's really freaking awesome of y'all. So let's keep it moving. Do you really think it's safe to have Penning and a rookie protecting our QB? So what rookie do you have starting, Lester? Because I don't have a rookie starting. I don't think Saldivari is going to be your day one starter unless Honors Pete's not healthy. But I will say this, even if Penning was your starter, even if Saldivari was your starter, even if that was your starting left side, that is a better offensive line than Derek Carr had in Oakland/Las Vegas. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. Like, I'm not hyping up the New Orleans Saints. Last year, let me put it this way. As Saints fans, y'all are used to a standard of offensive line play that the league is not used to. So last year, y'all look at this offensive line and go, damn, they took a step back. And for an offensive line for the Saints, sure. But Andy Dalton was pressured on less than 15% of his snaps. 15%. And we agree. He was pressured too much. Now, Andy Dalton has a quick release. That helps with that, etc. But let me give you some examples of what Mr. Derek Carr has had to live with. Last year, his pressure rate was 19%, and Jared Stidham's was 30%. That's with the Raiders. And that's us taking a step back. Let's go back to 2021. Let's keep talking about it. 21% for Derek Carr. Let's go back to 2020 with the Raiders. 20% for Derek Carr. Let's go back to 2019 for the Raiders. 20% for Derek Carr. The offensive line play is just simply better in New Orleans. Even if you had that starting on the left side, I think New Orleans just has a better offensive line unit. Do I think that they're their best offensive line in the NFL like they were at one point? No. But I do think that as a whole, in context, yeah, I think that what New Orleans is providing is better than what Derek Carr has had easily within the last 4 years. Now, do we want to go back to like rookie Derek Carr and stuff like that and see then? Maybe, but actually no, because 2018, I just looked, 2018, Derek Carr, 24% of his snaps, pressure. Under pressure. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely absurd. And if you go to the Saints, even when the Saints have struggled, like last year, and I will say last year was not their best year. Look at even 2021. What was their pressure rate? Their pressure rate with Trevor Siemian was 22%. And you could argue because of injury, 2021 was like the worst year in Saints history because of injuries and stuff. And even that isn't worse than some of the years that we just talked about with our buddy Derek Carr. So I think even with that, New Orleans offensive line is better. I'm hoping they can return to being a top unit because there was a time where the offensive line was arguably the best in the entire league. If nothing else, they were consistently top 3. To give you another example, in 2020, Drew Brees was pressured 14% of his throws. Now, Drew Brees is Drew Brees. He's special. That doesn't mean that any of these other quarterbacks are Drew Brees, but Drew Brees, 14%. That's good. 2018, 16%. So if you can get your pressure rate down to that 15% or lower mark, and then you can have elevated quarterback play, like we can probably agree that even if you like or dislike Derek Carr, he's better than Trevor Siemian. He's better than Taysom Hill. And many people would say he's better than Jameis Winston. So in theory, yes, I'm okay with it. Now, it could be awful. It could be absolutely god-awful terrible. Y'all could be right. But I personally, Lester, am not worried yet. I'm not worried yet. I'll be worried when I see a problem. Mike says, my wife loves Haener, Taysom, and Moreau, but for different reasons. Mike, I'm not going to say anything, but if this was Twitch, I'd say something. I'm gonna need your wife to calm down. Hoodie, good to see you. It says, who that wanted to ask with the wide receiver room we have now, who you got making the 53-man roster? Who's making the practice squad? Who is not making it at all? This is such a tricky one. And Hoodie, thank you for coming in. Good to see you. I do encourage you to check out the podcast after this post, because we actually went into depth on the wide receiver room a little bit earlier. But here's who I would say right now. If you keep 5, Chris Olave, Michael Thomas, Rashid Shaheed, A.T. Perry, Bryan Edwards. That'd be my 5. If you keep 6, then it's between Keith Kirkwood, Traquan Smith, and maybe Kawan Baker, maybe Shaquan Davis, maybe Malik Flowers. I personally am not super big on James Washington. I do think that no matter what, Kawan Baker and maybe Malik Flowers are guys that are practice squad candidates for sure. Keep in mind, we got larger practice squads now than we used to. But it really comes down to, do they keep 5 or do they keep 6? Keep 5 or keep 6. If they're keeping 5, I don't think Malik Flowers has a chance. If they keep 6 and Malik Flowers has a good camp, I think he has a shot. But again, how are those guys contributing on special teams? And if you want to really get an idea of who to watch, that's who to watch. Watch special teams. Like, do you see Darren Rizzi or Phil Galliano on the sidelines talking? If you see, there you go. If anybody's going to go to camp, because I know a lot of our Saints fans go to camp, it's actually really sad that a lot of other football franchises don't have fans going, like, selling out camp. We do, because New Orleans actually cares about our team. But y'all watch on the sidelines. Malik Flowers is, I think, he's wearing 88, I think. If you see Phil Galliano or Darren Rizzi constantly talking to that man, pay attention. He could be making the roster. So Flowers will start. Oh, so you have Flowers, Teedra starting as our kick returner and punt returner. We'll see. I'm not going to argue it. Like, I'm not going to argue against it. We'll see. But that's actually why I'm bringing up Phil Galliano and Darren Rizzi so much. If you see those notes I'm telling you to look for, that's how you know. That's how you know. That's how you know. We need Turner to have an impact. If Peyton Turner doesn't have an impact, he may not be on this team. Truly. 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 So, Kirkwood had 257 yards over 4 years, 209 of those 4 years ago. No thanks. Yeah, look, I'm not sitting here banging the table for Keith Kirkwood. That's why I don't have him on my making the roster right now. I'm a believer that guys like Kirk Merritt and Keith Kirkwood, if they were going to make the roster and like be a contributor, they would have. Because Kirk Merritt has been in the league like 5 years now. He's like 26, 27. Keith Kirkwood is, I think, like 28, 29. If they were going to make it, they would have made it. So I don't have them in my top 5, but you do still keep them around. You do see if maybe something happens. Because, look, we talk about late bloomers. Caden Ellis, who a lot of people throw love at, and I have no problem with anybody throwing love at Caden Ellis. Caden Ellis took years to pop off. Years. Like, Caden Ellis finally popped off last year, but Caden Ellis is like 28 years old. But Caden Ellis has been in the league. This is his 5th season. You know, I argue maybe 27 or 28 years old. But still, I mean, it took years for Caden Ellis to pop off. And now he's popped off. We'll see if he pops off with Atlanta this year. Hopefully not. You know what? I hope he has a successful season, just not when he plays New Orleans. Is that fair? That's fair. We'll go with that. But yeah, I mean, sometimes it does take time, but I just don't really see it. Is Chase Hansen still on the team? Chase Hansen is not on the team right now. Chase Hansen. What a name. What a name. Chase Hansen is, I don't even think he's been picked up. I'm pretty sure he's just a free agent. I don't think he's anywhere. Do we call the former wide receiver from New York? Who, Lester? Who? I thought we drafted Ellis in 2019. We drafted Ellis 7th round, I think, 2019. But 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. So this is his year 5. He's been in the league 4 years. He's played in the league 4 years. And he obviously started like half of last season. So. Unique. Honestly, I never thought that Caden Ellis was going to get re-signed by New Orleans. Because I knew when teams saw what he did, particularly rushing the passer at the linebacker position, how he could cut inside and rush from the B and the A gap. I didn't think that he was going to be on the team anymore, but I would have loved if he still was. But I just knew the Saints were going to offer him that contract. It just wasn't going to happen. And they've already got good pass rushers anyway. You know, Demario Davis is elite at it, and they really they do a lot of blitzing, but I think that New Orleans is going to continue to do that from the position and also do it from the nickel spot like they have always done. But Caden Ellis, I think he had the second most blitzes last year with the team, behind only Demario Davis. And Pete Warner was 3rd. So Pete Warner healthy is going to get the same role. Now, are we going to argue that he was as successful as Caden? He wasn't. But Dennis Allen is somebody that I will trust when it comes to defensive scheming. I don't trust Defensive Allen yet as a coach, but I trust him in terms of scheming. What's your take on Devontae Adams' comments? Is he going to try to get out of Vegas? I don't really pay it too much of a mind. Because even if he wants out of Vegas, you pay him for him? I mean, just to give you an idea, unless he just got straight cut. But Devontae Adams' contract, unless he was just straight cut, here's his current contract. His contract is worth this season. He has a dead cap of $54 million, and his contract is worth 26. Like he's getting $26 million in cash this year. No, thank you. No, thank you. Like, dude, y'all talk about the Saints having some dead cap numbers. 54.32 million is his dead cap this year. Like, god damn. So unless they just straight cut him and say, damn it, we're out. Ouch. No, I don't really So I mean, players can say whatever they want, but Devontae signed a cushy contract. The weird thing was, though, I think his contract was not even, I don't even think he got 50% guaranteed. I think his contract was like 40% guaranteed. So he's 31, turning 32. Even if he wanted out, can he even go? And that's a lot of dead cap. And if I'm the Saints, unless you can finagle a deal, because I'm not giving a first or a second rounder for a guy that's that old at a skill position. I just don't see it really anything happening. But that's a lot of cap just sitting there. Even if you found a way to finagle it where they ate half of it, I still don't want your 27 million cap number on my butt. You know, I don't care. No, I'm sorry. So, can you imagine Vegas like just straight cutting a guy that you owe that much money to? Yeah, I can't. Do you see Anderson making the team at linebacker? Mr. Wright, if Anderson's going to make the team, we're right at 1 hour, by the way, so you do have to wrap up. But if you join our Discord, you can get more of these conversations in. TJ, if you post a link to our Discord, I appreciate it. Discord is free. Honestly, I think he's going to make it. It has to be special teams, which means that he needs to get buddy-buddy with Darren Rizzi and Phil Galliano. But I do think that he has some really good linebacker tape. But if he's going to make this team, it's going to be as a special teamer first. Eugene says no such thing as too much wide receiver depth. I definitely don't think so. Hootie says, out of all the draft picks this year, who you got making the most impact and who's going to have the best career? That's tough. I think the most immediate impact is Foskey, maybe Breesy. We'll see. I think Foskey has the potential for the most impact because I think that edge position has the biggest need for another pass rusher. But I love the draft. Who has the potential for the longest career? Honest to God, Salvaderi, low-key, could definitely be a 10 to 13-year starter in the NFL. Really could. Really, honest to God, could. I think Kendra Miller is, like, he looks like the next Alvin Kamara. Like, he looks like he can fit that role and play it for years. But he's a running back, so I don't think he could play it for 10 years. Salvaderi has all the traits you look for in an offensive lineman that plays 10 years. Whether that happens, I don't know. But he's got all the traits and all the potential to be that guy. I think Brian Breezy, Isaiah Foskey both have the best potential to contribute right now. And I know it's cliche because of the top picks. But there's also, those are the two biggest holes left on this team going into the draft. But in terms of long-term, Salvaderi is the one that I go, when I see his tape, I see a guy that can play this in the game 10 years. And if he continues to get better because he already has really good handwork, I think he has good footwork already. I don't really care the fact that he's only got 33-inch arms because if he's playing guard, that's okay on the interior. Good body size. I think he's got good health. I think he'd be a 10-year player. So that'd be my name. And then Jake is a complete unknown. I'm not going to pick a quarterback to be the guy, but hey, he could pop off. Walt says, I believe James Washington is going to make the team. It's time to cut Smith. Even if they cut Smith, I still don't believe that Washington makes his team. But I have no problem bringing him into camp and seeing what happens. No problem at all. Also think A.T. Perry will be a stud. A.T. Perry is a guy that I really like. I had a couple of other guys I liked more ahead of him in the draft, but in the 6th round, I was ecstatic to get that value. I think that he, just like Miller is the potential future after Kamara, Perry is the potential future after Michael Thomas. So we'll wait and see. Teacher says Nick can only be a special teamer. I don't think that being 5'9.5", 5'10" precludes him from contributing as a linebacker. It does set him back, like it does make the potential obviously more difficult, but we've seen, even in today's NFL, guys below that, threshold contribute. So we'll just wait and see. You think we need to trade Michael Thomas? Nope. I don't think that you can get value for it even if you wanted to. The only value that Michael Thomas can provide is to the New Orleans Saints and vice versa. So, All right, y'all. I love y'all. We're going to be back Thursday. Thursday, we're probably going to open the phone lines again. And that will be in the Discord. So if you want to get your chat in, you need to join the Discord to make that happen. Join up, get in, and speak your piece. Thursday nights, we've been opening up the mics again. So if y'all want to do that, come check it out. As always, I appreciate y'all. Who dat? God bless. Come check us out on the Discord. If you haven't already, check out the merch to help support the channel. We got the t-shirts on a decent price. Get you the Pull the Trigger, get you the Who Dat Confessional shirt, get you the mug. I'm even going to put some hoodies because literally seeing the name Hoodie Jube reminded me that I haven't put up a Saints hoodie. So I really should do that because, hell, I'll wear a Saints hoodie. Who dat? God bless. Appreciate every single one of y'all. See y'all on the Discord. See y'all on the next episode. And see y'all on the next film study dropping this week. Deuces. I'm out.